I'm inclined to adopt your remarks as my remarks, but I guess I have to sing for my supper. I have to tell this anecdote. Maybe I shouldn't. This anecdote has nothing to do with my selection to be on this panel, but I was asked to speak to the big gathering here on 9/12. Some of you may have known about it. I was told there were going to be 50,000 people. It turns out that there were upwards of 500,000 or 600,000 people, and so my carefully scripted legal remarks about the constitutionality of the TARP were clearly inappropriate when I got up in front of a crowd that I couldn't see the end of. And I panicked, so what I said was, this is a great day. This is your day. You tell these people behind me, the Capitol, that they work for you. You don't work for them. There's been too much government intervention, too much government spending, too many government bailouts. And I want to hear you say after me, no more bailouts. And within 15 seconds, 500,000 people were chanting, no more. Anyway, if I'd had another 5 minutes, I'd have been king. The point is that this issue has enormous public resonance with people who are not lawyers. And so it's a big, big topic, and we really ought to try to get it right. I'm going to try to do a little brief introduction and go back to sort of first principles. I think in order to talk about bailouts, you have to talk about, well, how did we get where we are? And I want to try to get to that question by asking another question. Did we fail Adam Smith, or did Adam Smith fail us? And I want to start out with a very, very simple question. If you were a local mortgage broker in a medium-sized town, a suburb of a big city, and you knew neighbors or people in the Parent-Teacher Association who were having growing families and would love to have a house, would you sell a subprime mortgage to someone that you knew couldn't pay you back and that you would have to see and see friends of for the next 5 to 10 years at various meetings, Safeway or whatever, grocery store? And the answer is no, you wouldn't. I mean, you might once. You might make a mistake, but you wouldn't do this deliberately. That is, unless the government said, hey, sell it, we'll pay you a little premium for doing so, sell as many as you can, and we'll take it off your hands. And then the government decided that they would then resell or repackage to Wall Street with sort of guarantees, implicit guarantees along the way, and guarantees that the rating agency would give very, very good ratings to these products, which could then be resold to more unsuspecting people. And then the government said, if you run out of money, we'll lower interest rates, and then we'll make sure that the money's available for you to make as many of these things as you can. And then if you happen to falter, we'll pick you up at the end of the day. Now, would Adam Smith have tolerated any of this? No, I don't think so. Now, today people say Adam Smith didn't understand human nature and didn't understand heedless, endless greed. And we have, therefore, to surround him and his principles and those of the Scottish Enlightenment with a better sensitivity towards how to control human nature and control greed. And this, of course, requires government intervention. Now, I would argue, if you go back and study it, that this turns Adam Smith on his head. His point was there is a community sense of moral value, ordinary people doing business with ordinary people, and it's the government that's going to interrupt that by inviting in rent-seeking from businessmen to utilize and extort the government, exploit the government into giving them preferential treatment, and one thing will lead to another, and then you will have a bailout, a huge bailout problem. His first book, many of you may not know, was Theory of Moral Sentiments. It was not a book on economics, it was a book on morals. He was originally a moralist. He was not originally an economist. And of course, in those days, they didn't have categorizations the way we do anyway. But he was a moralist, and his idea, and the building block, P.J. O'Rourke has written about this, the building block of Wealth of Nations was Theory of Moral Sentiments, man's innate ability, innate desire to be a part of a community. These Scottish Enlightenment folks were all sort of sons of Presbyterian ministers, and in many ways you could simplify and say the Scottish Enlightenment was a gloss on the Golden Rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or, as we say in America, what goes around comes around. And he, therefore, would never have tolerated any of this. He didn't like businessmen very much. One of his famous quotes is, no two businessmen can get together without engaging in some capture of the public interest or contrivance to raise prices. And he said that the worst form of government is a government made up almost exclusively of merchants. And when you know that at least just one Wall Street firm has positions in Undersecretary of State for Economics, Chief of Staff at the Treasury, deep ties into the Fed, chairmanship of the Commodities Future Trading Corporation, and Chief of Enforcement at the SEC, you won't begin to wonder, well, maybe Adam Smith knew something. In any event, this leads at least questions to be raised about whether we are on the right track. He would have rejected Fannie Mae. He would have rejected the SEC-sponsored oligopoly of the rating agencies. He would have said the Fed should not use its monopoly power to pay money at the expense of the general public, which is arguable that that's what happened, but I think that's what he would say happened. And he would have opposed bailouts. Now, but is this what actually happened? We need a study, I believe, that has some political buy-in. There's probably not much disagreement in this room about what I've just said and about the influence of the government, the Community Reinvestment Act, the Fannie Mae, the Fed, the rating agencies. That's all probably agreed to by the bulk of the people in this room, but it's not bought into by the public, and we need to have something like that, I think, to solve the problem, because if we pick the wrong solution, if we don't understand the problem, we are likely to pick the wrong solution. The South Sea bubble, for example, which informed a lot of Adam Smith's thinking, got it wrong, or the people, the policymakers at the time got it a little bit wrong. They thought that one of the difficulties with the South Sea bubble, with the South Sea Company, was its monopoly position, which it was, but they didn't eliminate the position. What they did was they said no more joint stock ownership, and it set back capital formation in Great Britain for quite some time. It was not the cause of the problem. It maybe contributed, but it was not the cause of the problem. The cause of the problem was printing, as Adam Smith said, Daedalian wings of paper money. And so I think there should be a panel, a study that would be both U.S. and transatlantic. 70% of world capital flows are transatlantic. China is thought to be very, very big in this, but in fact, and deal with capital flows, it's really U.S. and Europe. I was at a mini meeting of the Munich Security Conference, Europeans, Americans, panel of Europeans and Americans. I asked the question, shouldn't we have a discussion, a joint agreement, to do a study or a commission to understand what we're trying to fix? And the answer I got back from the senior American official was, no two economists can possibly agree on what caused the Great Depression, so what a waste of time it would be to try to understand what we're doing now. And I said, I wanted to say, so we're concocting 1,500 pages of legislation to fix a problem that you can't identify. And I think this is a problem. We are diverging with Europe, just to take one example. They are probably going to break up their big banks. We are not. And Jamie Dimon had chairman of J.P. Morgan Chase, had a long article in today's Washington Post, you could read it, where he's rejecting suggestions of putting a cap on growth. But that's not what the suggestions are. The suggestions are that you separate those functions where there is access to the Fed window, FDIC guarantees, and implicit federal bailout guarantee from more speculative trading activities. We ought to try to understand what we're doing before we enshrine bigness with a regulatory structure that not only is prone to capture and prone to a bailout, but that actually constitutes a bailout. And if we don't get this right, we will be a bailout nation involving ultimate moral hazard. So I will stop there.
Okay. Thank you.